equations, it's an algorithm, right? If then.
Yep.
If he does this, then I do this. This is the applications. This is the technique. That's a technique. But when we really back up and start talking about principles, right? The principles have to be much broader. And there's things like structure, right? That's a principle. And it applies whether you're laying on the ground, it applies whether you're standing up, whether you're on 1 foot, if you're on 2 feet, if you're spread out, if you're closed up. The structure, the principle of structure remains the same. I think the principle of creating space and occupying space.
Yep.
That's a principle. Create space, occupy space. Kuzushi. I think the idea of kuzushi is a principle. It's not a technique, but off balancing is a principle that needs to be applied in order to be effective in certain things, right? I have to be able to gain kuzushi in order to be effective. And if I can do that, then the principle of establishing kuzushi, it applies regardless of where we are. It doesn't have to matter whether I'm, you know, if I'm here and I'm trying to gain kuzushi this way, right, like this, well, there's kuzushi. I take his base here, and I take his base here, and now I have kuzushi. That applies if he's on the ground, if he's on his knees too. If he's here, right, then the idea of kuzushi is I take his base, and then I simply move his center of gravity, right? So the unbalancing remains the same. If I'm on the ground, if I'm standing up here, which most of us recognize this, right? And I see this, you know, this movement here, or this movement here, right? Just as a principle of kuzushi. I've gained kuzushi. Doesn't matter if I do it this way, whether I do it this way, whether I do it this way, right? The idea that he's now off balance, that principle's the same, right? So I think that kuzushi is a principle, not necessarily a technique. But at some point, you kind of got to get, you got to get with a person who's going to resist you a little bit, right? I don't think you can get away from that.